Ooh. Yeah, I just thought it was actually a really good game, sort of back and forth. Good one to watch, and it looked like the Condors might be able to pull it off, but Wakefield sort of gave them their own preseason medicine and came back in the last minute and just crushed their dreams. It was a good game though by both teams. Oh, hold on, Smitty. Hold on, Smitty. I think your mic is muted. They're saying all I can hear is me.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, it was muted.
You might want to just restart that. Everybody forget the last 3 minutes. Everybody just forget what you heard. We're going to restart all over again right now.
I was up here talking with a whole intro and everything. I can't believe it. But there's a reason for that, which I was going to say is a surprise that I got for you guys who've been asking for something for a long time. I'll say that for the end, but I'll have a video for you guys on that. But yeah, let's go into this podcast now. What I was saying was, of course, welcome to the podcast. Thank you guys for supporting and coming through. And I didn't have a graphic for the Crusaders and Condors game, so instead we'll just talk about it. And what I was saying was the Crusaders were able to defeat the Condors, the final score of 27-23. And, of course, that game came down to the wire with, once again, Ben Wakefield to Bentley saving the day for the Crusaders again, getting it done with a last-minute touchdown, where he was able to keep control of the football on top of the defender's head in the end zone for the touchdown. And I guess, Bill, you could take it away again on your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, you guys sort of already heard my take on it. Wakefield gave the Condors a taste of their own medicine from preseason. Coming back, they're the ones who fell victim to that this time around. Wakefield and Bentley are looking dangerous. It's going to be interesting to see how the season unfolds for those guys.
Yeah, and I see people right now in the chat saying, wow, yeah, I can't believe that, though, still. That's crazy. I thought I had my mic on the whole time. But, yeah, the Crusaders, like you said, that connection right now is looking amongst the best in the league. And right now I'm pretty sure you guys can hear, which is kind of why I'm kind of glad that I had the mic muted in the beginning. The PlayStation right now is hyperventilating in the corner. And it's really going off right now. Hopefully it's nothing too serious where you guys, are annoyed by it. But, as the podcast goes on, I'm pretty sure you'll get adjusted to it. But, yeah, my PlayStation right now seems like it's on its last win. But, yeah, so that's it for that game. I didn't have a graphic for that. Just talked about that. Crusaders got the dub 27-23. But moving on to the games that I do have graphics for, I have the game that followed that on Twitch, which was the San Antonio Dreadnoughts taking on the Armadillos. The Dreadnoughts get the win here, and honestly, if it wasn't for the suspension of Frankie J, this team would be undefeated right now. They have not lost an RFL game, and they dominated the Armadillos, who dominated the Huskies just last week with a final score of 40-23, and they get beat here by 24 points, 34-10 over the Dreadnoughts. What's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I thought that this game was sort of it unfolded because of one person this way, and that's Matt Jones, who I was a little surprised about because I was a little skeptical how it was going to be with him as the starting quarterback. But man, he came out like a madman for the Dreadnoughts, and just the Armadillos had no answer, and they ran away with it. Dreadnoughts are looking really good, and like you said, they would be undefeated right now without that slip up by the coach earlier this year. So, man, you got to watch out for those guys.
Yeah, and you can see right there on the stats and everything, it was the Jones show. You had I said Keanu Jones. You had Cam Jones returning back, of course, last week in his big performance against the Bisons. He comes back. He had a little bit of a quiet game still, 4 receptions for just 62 yards. But Matt Jones, like you said, was the star of the game. He was able to come through with 3 total touchdowns, 2 on the ground, which he led the team in rushing with 8 carries for 69 yards, and 1 through the air, which he only missed 3 out of 14 passes and completed up to 143 yards there on that Armadillos defense. So he was really giving that good defense that we know of the Armadillos fits, and they were able to pull away and get a good victory here. So it was a great performance. I was very impressed by Matt Jones on how he came out. The Armadillos, I mean, unfortunately for them, getting swept by the Dreadnoughts, the second time they lose to them this season in this series. But, Drew Hartsock, the offense, they still tried their best. But that Dreadnoughts team, like you said, looking like a very dangerous team. And interested to see how, the rest of the season is going to turn out for them there with Coach DeRozier. And I'm moving on to, was there a game behind this one? I don't think it was. So let me go ahead. Yeah, it wasn't a game behind. I forgot. It didn't have the graphic for the Condors and Crusader game. Okay, so now moving on to the next slate of games, we get into the premier games, and this was the shocker of the week. The Brooklyn Barons traveled to Toronto and defeated the once undefeated Toronto Thunderbirds with a final score of 24-9. I mean, the Barons did everything just about right with the offense. Jack Winkler's performance was, like you can see right there from the game notes, instrumental in this win. And, of course, you see Amari Manuel going off. But, I can't believe that even this Barons defense was able to hold the Thunderbirds to no scoring touchdowns. Only touchdown they got was defensive. What's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, it's obviously the shocker, because you expect the Thunderbirds to win that game. But at the same time, I mean, this is a divisional game now. This is a big deal. And you never know what's going to happen in a divisional game. To me, the Barons sort of controlled the tempo throughout the game, even if it was like 3 points, 6 points, 7 points. But it was a close game. It was back and forth. The Thunderbirds scored, the Barons scored, the Thunderbirds scored, the Barons scored. And the Barons just they held on in the end. I don't know if it was the looks that the Barons were giving LC3 or if LC3 just got a concussion and we don't know about it, but he just looked lost on that last drive inside the red zone. So hats off to the Barons for the big win.
Yeah, and back to what you were saying about it being back and forth with them scoring. I mean, the difference was, the Barons were scoring with touchdowns, the Thunderbirds scoring with field goals. And like you said, with LC3, really looked like he was lost out there. Honestly, should have won the game at the end. They were in the red zone in scoring position in the final seconds, and there were so many opportunities. I was screaming in my head, and Coach Kozera said himself, run the football, LC3. That's what you do, and he didn't run the football. And he could have closed out that game by himself and had his team remain undefeated, but he just didn't do that. He tried to save the day with his arm, and even though we know he's a much improved quarterback now for the past 2 seasons, I mean, I would have liked to see him scramble in those situations. And you can also see the numbers. I mean, Jack Winkler only missing 6 out of 37 passes. Kenny still going off with a good 4.4 yard per carry average. Got a touchdown. Like I said, Amari Manuel. Right now, Jack Winkler, I know Coach has been talking about getting rid of him and everything. And, honestly, it's not too bad of a move. He is getting up there in age, and they do want to move on. But right now, Jack Winkler is what's making this Barons team, especially their offense, be in full throttle.
Yeah. And just to add to that quick, the Barons offense has been doing what we thought they were going to do. I mean, they have a 99 quarterback, they have a great running back, and Amari Manuel is a great receiver. So I've expected their offense to be top tier. It's just always been about, can the defense keep up with, some of the teams in the RFL. This week they answered that question. They did it just enough to win the game, and I mean, that was a good game.
Yeah, we'll get more into the Barons later on in this podcast, but moving on to the next game, we had your game against the Tigers, and it was a much more closer and competitive game now since the Tigers had got themselves a new coach in Rolabi Wizenard, and it was just a 10-point deficit game, but you guys still ended up pulling out on top and sweeping the Tigers with a second win this season. Final score 24-14. What's your takeaways from that one?
I thought this was a great game to watch. It was a great game by both teams, to be honest. And the reason I say that is, I won by 10, but week 1, this was a whole different story against the Tigers. It was a beatdown, and I really do think that a lot of the differences I saw this week was because of the coach. He did a great job. He noticed that I lost CJ last week, CJ Robinson, and he immediately attacked the run. Now, it says that Ottagwe had 72 yards rushing, but if you watch that game, he shut down my run game. It was hard for those 72 yards. And, as much as the defense held against the run, luckily I had some young guys step up and, get the couple of scores we needed, and Worrell was Worrell, and, we ended up pulling it out. So, good win, but a great game. And hats off to the new coach.
Yeah, hats off there to Wizenard. And as far as talking about this podcast in general, I'm getting a reading right now from my Elgato. Hopefully this doesn't shut down, but if it does, I'll try to refresh the Elgato and everything and just start the stream back up. But it should probably last here, but I'm getting like a 14 frames per second type of icon. So hopefully the quality isn't shot right now. But I don't see that it is right now from what you guys are watching. But anyway, about this game, like you said, Coach did a great job coming into this game. We already knew that they were the unlikely favorites to win the game, but the fact that they did make it a 10-point game didn't just show the heart of the Tigers. It showed what type of impact that Coach has there for the Tigers, like you said. And now, of course, after the loss of the Thunderbirds to the Barons, it was 2 back-to-back, divisional NFC North divisional games going at it, and that was able to excel you to the top, and now you're followed by the Barons. So it's really a 3-man race right now for the top of the NFC North. The Tigers, though, like I said, they got a great coach, and hopefully, he might be able to change things around and start, doing things in the future. Right now, this may not be his year, but you can tell what type of impact, like I said, like you even said from the game, that he may have in the future for this team.
Yeah, and the NFC North is about to get real fun. I mean, I beat the Barons beat the Thunderbirds, and the Thunderbirds beat me. This is going to be a fun second half of the season for us.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Those are 2 games I can't wait for. This is 2 of the most exciting games in this division I'm waiting for. The game with you taking on the Thunderbirds again, and, of course, the Barons taking on the Thunderbirds again, see how those games turn out.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to the next game, and it was another shocker. As the Steamers, I wasn't necessarily shocked that the Steamers lost, because we already know that the Marshals are a pretty good, solid team, especially with their defense. But I was more shocked by the way that they lost. And I know Coach Justin was arguing us down, and to see you talking about, man, it was too many fumbles. I understand that, but at the same time, it wasn't like they were necessarily in the game too much to begin with before those fumbles happened. As the Marshals came out to a pretty hot start, and they were able to get a booming win over the Steamers and end their winning streak to make them 5-1, tying up with the Marshals with a 41-15 final score. So, what's your takeaways from that one?
Yeah, man, that was a tough game if you were a Steamers fan, player, or coach, because, man, the Marshals attacked. They came heavy. And I said at the beginning of the season, I said it during preseason, the Marshals are going to live and die by their defense. If their defense is playing well, the rest of the team is going to follow suit. And, man, that defense was all over today. I don't think I've seen Wagner have such a bad game. But to be honest, I'm not concerned about the Steamers, and I think I said this about what team was it a week or 2 ago? The Desperados. You have bad games. This thing happens. It happens to every team in every season. I'm sure it'll happen to me at some point. It's going to happen to everybody. But man, the Marshals, they came ready to play, and they just caught the Steamers off guard. And once a couple of those turnovers started piling up, man, the Steamers just couldn't get out ahead of it. And the Marshals they attacked like sharks in the water when they smell blood.
Yeah, and always tough when you lose your first game, especially by that margin. They just struggled offensively, like you said, one of the worst games that we've seen Reed Wagner have. And we know he likes to be risky, taking shots down the field, and he throws quite a few interceptions. But 3 interceptions, we talk about the fumbles, but it's also the interceptions. Just way too many takeaways, period, in this game. So, like I said, it wasn't necessarily the fact that these guys were just forcing fumbles on defense. The whole team as a unit offensively just seemed to struggle making plays happen on that defense. And as for the Marshals, it looks like their offense, they just came ready to play as well and just did their job. Tyler Argamonte had completed 29 out of 36 of his passes, had a good 200-plus yard game, 2 touchdowns, had the 1 interception. I was also impressed by Adam Guerin, as he got his opportunity to get in the game, and he did well. 18 carries for 94 yards. Didn't get a touchdown, though, and didn't break for over 100 yards, but still a great game to show potential for his player in the future if things were to ever, move on, if they were to ever to move on possibly from Overstreet, who's 28 at the time, who may be gone in a couple of years, and he's also injured right now. So it's great playing time for him, and I was also shocked by the rookie Sean Acosta. He had 8 receptions for 77 yards. It's the second week in a row that he showed out catching the football, and the Marshals, they're looking good right now. And especially, one more thing I wanted to add on to this game, after getting this victory, now they are going to compete this week in week 7 against the Lancers, which we'll get into later on. But that game is going to be for the division. It's going to be a big one.
Yeah, and oh man, I was so happy for Jaron. I don't know which way to say it, but I don't care. I've been calling for this guy to get the ball more since preseason, and it was great to be able to see him actually get enough carries to get himself going. As everybody knows, or if you don't know, I played with him during our rookie series 2 series ago on the Flyers, and I was ecstatic about it since then. So it's been great to see him sort of flourish now and get a chance.
Yeah, big shout out to Adam Guerin, man. Great game, and he's a different change of pace.
Great community member too. He's always around.
Yeah, definitely a great member. Great change of pace back too, because I mean, he's doing this as a power back. He's not necessarily fast, but he's got good vision and he makes good plays, man. He did a good job in that game against the Steamers. Moving on to the next game, we have the Lancers, who is going to be taking on the Marshals, like I said, this week for a battle of the division. But the Lancers took on the Gunners and got the job done. The Gunners 0-3 in RFL games. We'll talk more about them in the future here. But the Lancers, they handled business. They're on a 6-game winning streak, but 4-1 in the RFL, and they have themselves a not a 6-game winning streak, on a 5-game winning streak. Don't know why I put 6 there. 5-1 record right now, and they were able to get it done over the Gunners 20-13. What's your takeaways from that one?
I was rather impressed with the Lancers defense. We know that that's sort of been their weakness this year, and they came in with one goal, and that was to contain Jabri Jackson, and man, did they do a great job. No matter what happened, he just was not able to get the ball going, whether it was running or passing. I mean, he would get some, get a nice pass, get a nice run, but then they'd shut it down. Just a great all-around game by the Lancers defense.
I honestly felt like the Gunners' only success spot was Jabri Jackson. I mean, they did do a good job containing him, making sure he didn't have a monster game. But we already know that Jabri Jackson, he's always had a little bit of trouble with accuracy. I like to compare him with the NFL quarterback Cam Newton. He has all the size and ability in the world and struggled a little bit with his accuracy. But he had a 300-plus yard game in this one. Didn't throw for any touchdowns, but he actually had one of his better games throwing the football throughout his career and most of his games. And he had a 5-yard per carry average. So he did pretty good there. Kevion Ford, a young receiver, getting off. I think this is a guy that's going to develop and be a great receiver for them in the future. He had 7 receptions for 101 yards, no touchdowns, like I said, no passes at all. But it was, once again, the Jabri Jackson show that continues to fail. And, it's not like it was in the past. He needs more than just him to make things happen. But I'm going more into depth on a topic that we're going to be talking about later on. So I'm going to just leave that alone. But like you said, very impressed with the Lancers defense. They were able to keep the Gunners from running up points and scoring touchdowns within this one. And this is looking like a very good team right now. I mean, we were talking earlier about what their issues was running the football, but they did a pretty good job of that. NO3 wasn't too much of a factor. But Rashawn Gary, you can see 13 carries for 78 yards at a touchdown. Actually did a really good job, and I like now that they are involving DeAndre Can. I remember they had issues with him where he wasn't feeling his move here on this team. He really kind of felt like he didn't want to be here, but it seems like Coach Regier is figuring out ways to get him the football, and he had himself a really solid game. 5 receptions, 93 yards, didn't have a touchdown, but he was an impact player. And Trey Mason continues to impress me as well because he just seems to be a very consistent quarterback that keeps the offense going. Moving on to the next game, we had the Bulldogs taking on the Bisons. Another close game for the Bisons that they lose, as they are now 0-5 in RFL play, and their offense just continues to struggle to score. Most likely it's running the football. It's been a big struggle for them. Bisons end up losing to the Bulldogs 20-17. What's your takeaways?
Yeah, this game I thought the Bulldogs did a good job of jumping out early and sort of getting that. I think it was like a 10-point lead to start out the game. And as the game wore on, you saw the Bisons trying to get back in it, and they almost did. They did sort of mount some sort of a comeback, and they just ran out of time. They had a chance on defense to stop the Bulldogs and get a chance back with probably a minute left, and they couldn't do it. And like you said, if they can't establish the run, whether it's Morris or Tom Shaw or whoever else, or they want to put their backup quarterback Torres in at running back, if you can't establish the run, you're just asking for defenses to attack Hobart. And we know that their offensive line is not great at pass blocking, so that's just, I mean, it's just until they get something figured out on the ground or get some extra help in the backfield to protect Devin Hobart, that we're going to keep seeing this over and over again. But they did, like I said, they did make a comeback. They got started too late, and it's going to be the story of their season if they can't figure out a way to get this offense moving a little quicker and get that ball out of Hobart's hands.
Yeah, and like you said, it all comes down to one factor of that team, and it's the offensive line. So there's really nothing that he can do about that. We already know offensive line is definitely a group in the RFL as a unit that isn't necessarily strong in the league yet. We've got a lot of young guys who are going to build up to be that. But, a team without an offensive line in the RFL, or at least a decent one, they tend to struggle like this, and it makes all the difference. I mean, they got all the playmakers in the world. Devin Hobart, a great quarterback. You see, he only missed 6 passes out of 33. Didn't throw any interceptions this time at all. Had a touchdown, but still, it wasn't enough. He still got pressured, and and like he says, it seems like it's going to be a long season for them. Coach Long already knows what needs to be done for that team. I'm pretty sure in the draft, when that comes up, he's going to be looking at offensive linemen heavy, but not too sure how much of an impact that will have down the line for them. But, of course, that's something that, they're going to have to build over time, is that offensive line. But I was also just impressed with the way how the game just turned out with the Bulldogs right now, after an 0-2 start, pretty much winning their next 2 games. Mm-hmm. So I'm like what Coach Reed's doing over there. Hopefully he continues to succeed with them.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that too and say I'm liking what Coach Reed is doing with the Bulldogs. I think this time last year, and even in the offseason, we were like, we forgot Matt Wheaton was even a guy. We knew he was there, but he just wasn't doing anything. And we're like, well, this guy just doesn't fit here. Well, this past game he showed that he can move the ball with Wheaton at the running back position, and just finding ways to make your guys play within the scheme and in your system is how you win in this league. So hats off to him. Hopefully he keeps it up, and looking forward to see what the second half of the season is in store with for them.
And then, of course, jumping off of Coach Long in the chats, talking about his team in other areas, is defense. I mean, that's 2 of the most important areas in the RFL that you need to be somewhat decent, and they just don't have it there, especially with the losses at linebacker for them due to injury. So tough break for the Bisons. Hopefully they bounce back and try to see what they could do next week to try to change things around.
Yeah, but hey, look at the bright side, Bisons. Ethan, you came in after the season already started. We're not expecting you to win the Reload Bowl this year, and you got some great prospects to look at, and you'll probably have a pretty good draft pick. So I wouldn't be too upset. You might get something out of it.
And that's the biggest thing I want to talk with coaches about, just to put out there. I mean, a lot of these coaches think that they could just change change the team right now to win. It's not going to happen that way. A lot of people talking about trades and stuff that they want to get through. But, of course, if it's not a logical trade, you can't, you got to learn how to develop a team with what you have. And, that's what it comes down to. This is a league about patience. You have to be patient. You have to know how to team build and work with the guys you have. Trading, yes, is a necessity in real life football, but it's not something that we harp on too much in this league. We like to see guys being able to build their own, guys up, and, there will be trades available and things like that, but guys need to learn how to have patience and make the best out of the team that they have, and understand that they do have a good team. Most guys are just young and not developed yet, and those are the guys, and guys like to tend to just trade, you know what I'm saying, and it turns into a big problem later on, and they still wonder why they have issues. I just wanted to go ahead and put that out there, and I already talked in the meeting about it, so hopefully coaches heed my word on that, and continue to get better and understand that winning is not easy at all in this league.
No, and like Roland just said, it's a free development year essentially. Nobody's expecting the Bisons to be top tier. Take the year, find the young guys in your core that you want to build around, and get ready to come out next year and hopefully have a better year. That's sometimes the only thing you can do. Is build from within. Yeah.
And the last game of the I don't think this was the last game. This is the last premier game that we had. The Bulls undefeated, took on the Cougars and remained undefeated by just narrowly escaping Chicago with a 1-point win. Final score was 23-20. What's your takeaways from that one?
Yeah, the Bulls just prove why they're undefeated. At one point it looked like the Cougars were running away with it. I think it was 16-0, and then as the game wore on, the Bulls just fought back. A lot of that goes to David Jones, because he might not have had the most rushing yards, but he did have 2 touchdowns that really helped him get back in it. And it was just a great win for the Bulls. Great comeback win, but it was a good game altogether. I know Rob obviously disappointed he didn't win the game, but this was a good game for both teams. It was back and forth, and the Bulls just pulled it out in the end. Just a good game to watch.
Yeah, nothing really too much to talk about this game. Just 2 really good teams going at it, and the Bulls is barely escaping and remaining undefeated at 6-0. One of the only 2 teams left is them and the Celtic Tigers. And I still honestly feel, as much as hype as I have for the Celtic Tigers, I still don't feel like this will be the year that a team will finish a season undefeated. You just never know in the RFL. It could possibly be done by either one of these teams, but you see how things change up. But the Bulls continue their success, and I really like the way that they turned things around. They started out really rough. Lane Kearney, I believe it was the first quarter, through 2 of those 2 interceptions, which you see right there on the stat sheet, but he turned things around, and you could see from then on, he only missed 5 out of 36 passes. The guy was just an absolute beast, threw for over 300 yards. Griffin Kashama, a lot of those slower receivers, a lot of the receivers that they have that the people don't tend to talk about. These guys are really good at high pointing and getting the football, along with Cedric Martz, the tight end, and they were doing that throughout the entire game, and that's what helped them win that game in the end. And so moving on to the primetime game, the final 4 primetime games on YouTube, we had a Kickfest right here. The Riverhogs taking on the Black Knights, and the final score was 12-9. No scoring touchdowns at all. Straight field goals made the best kicker win, and it was the Riverhogs with Ross Goss.
Yeah, I don't even think that the soccer matches that have this many kicks in it. My gosh, this game was not easy to watch if you were not, or if you're not a defensive fan. But if you were, then you love this game. I really don't have a whole lot to say. Both teams' defenses showed up to play. Neither team's offenses did the same. And the Riverhogs, throughout the game, it's which one of us can get close enough to take a shot for 3 points. And the Riverhogs did that one more time than the Black Knights, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, man, I was just very surprised by how good both of the defenses came out. I honestly thought that coming into this game, this was going to be a high-scoring game, and it was the complete opposite. Nothing but field goals. And, I mean, if we had a special teams player award that, of course we don't choose that because Madden doesn't have that, so we just go off of what they have for offensive defensive players of the week. But if we did have special teams player of the week, we'd have Ross Goss definitely win that award for winning this game with those 4 kicks. And honestly, we're looking at the stats here, but who cares? We should have just had the kicker stats alone up here for both teams, because that's pretty much what the game was. But it was a great game, great win for the Riverhogs, and hopefully, that's a big win for them. Hopefully they continue to keep that pattern going, and hopefully for the Black Knights, they bounce back.
Yeah, great game. Good game. And Anthony Washington, I see you in the chat. You apparently did your job this week. You just got to talk to your offense next week.
Yeah. And I see Rob taking over the RFL page here, talking about Go Cougars. But, yes. Moving on to the next game called by Rob on Twitch, it was the Diablos taking on the Desperados. And, man, these last 2 Twitch games, he had nothing but bangers, man. They were so great at games. The Diablos came up short to the Desperados, almost pulled off a great upset, but the Desperados bounced back after their loss to the Marshals a week ago and were able to pull out on top with the victory with a last-minute touchdown in the 4th quarter. Final score 36-31. Man, what do you guys say about this game?
Yeah, this game was amazing to watch. Heartbreaking loss for Coach Wes Warden, I think, because I think at one point the Diablos were up 17-0, and then Victor Rocha is like, okay, this is not happening. We are not losing like this. And then he just decided to, I think, what do you have, 2 picks? Both of them touchdowns?
Defensive player of the week, too.
Yeah, that guy just went off, and he brought the Desperados back, and then from there on it was just back and forth, and unfortunately for the Diablos, the Desperados got the ball last, and they got it in the end zone, and there it is.
Yeah, those two pick six was pretty much the biggest thing of the game. And even though they happened early, I mean that just sparked the momentum for the Desperados. And Victor Roca used to be a former Thunderbird, and I mean the dude, he's still young, and I think he just really boosted up some momentum for him for the rest of the season, especially the team and the defense. But with pulling them back with those big needed plays for the team. And of course, I think they perform well on all levels as well. It's just a great game. Desperados just managed to come out on top, and unfortunately, the Diablo's still searching for a win here this season.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that about the Diablos, sort of like I did with the Bisons, especially since Ethan at least has been here before. I hope the coach Warden doesn't see that his team is losing and just shy away or think he's not good enough, because we all knew that the Diablos were going to have problems this year. We all know what happened to them last year and that they've just been a mess. It's going to take time. Like same with Ethan, man. Just get your core guys going, figure out what you can try to establish and try to salvage this year, and just see what you can do in the offseason. Because yeah, I mean, we knew this was going to happen, and they're putting up points because we know they're talented, but the team just is not compatible at this point. It's going to take time for that to get fixed.
Yeah, and I see Coach Kozera, man. I remember everything about these guys, man. I'm telling you, as soon as I remember the name and I see they're in different uniforms, it's just like I automatically knew what team they were on, and that's definitely information I should know. And Victor Roca, man, had himself a heck of a game to bounce the Desperados back in this one. But moving on to the next game, which was the final two games on Monday, the Snowhawks rematched the Elks, this time in Salt Lake City, and got beat down. The Snowhawks put up 13 points, I believe it was, last time that they played, and the final score was 24-13, and this time they got absolutely beat down. Big game by Kyle Bain as he was able to beat them this time around 33-14.
Yeah, if you are living in Portland or any association with the Snowhawks, you are just praying for Week 8 to get here. My gosh, this team right now is in a landslide. They have been for a while. They're staying afloat with some of the NFL, non-counted games that they have, but man, they got to get to Week 8, because that's really the only thing that's going to save them at this point. And man, Kyle Bain, I don't know. I'm not going to take anything away from him, because I think for the most part, the Snowhawks defense has been intact. I think it's more the offense that has been hit so much with the suspension. And man, he looked phenomenal for them. He went off, and this is exactly the guy that I was expecting when I said it a few weeks ago, that he was going to be somebody to keep an eye on, and he showed why. He had a great game.
Yeah, 4 total touchdowns, 1 rushing, 3 passing, over 350 passing yards. This guy was getting it done, and the fact that he threw the ball 52 times and still killed them while on the ground. I mean, this offensive game plan coming in this game was amazing. We're going to talk more about the Snowhawks, so I'm not going to talk too much about them. Their struggles continue, obviously, offensively. And as for the Elks, I mean, that was just a tremendous job by them holding it down at home. And you can see they finally got Darius Martin going, 22 carries for 106 yards. He was going off in that game. Didn't get a touchdown, but still, guys were making plays. Malcolm Wiley had, honestly, I should have made a graphic for this, because he actually now holds the record for the most receptions in a single game.
I was going to say, that's got to be pretty close.
Yeah, he broke the record right there just looking at that. Malcolm Wiley just broke the RFL record for the most receptions in a single game. I did not think about it at all. And then he had 122 yards. So a tremendous game. And shout out to Coach Law and Malcolm Wiley there for breaking that record. A heck of a game. And then moving on to the last game of the week, it was a game that came down to the wire. It's a tie between the Desperados and Diablos game in this game, both on Twitch. For which one won game of the week, I guess I'll leave it up to the chat to decide, or rewatch if you want to. But, I mean, the Huskies and Aviators game was great, man. Came all the way down to the wire. The last time they met up, the Huskies beat down the Aviators with a final score of 35-10. But the Aviators, they were prepared this time to take on their division rivals. You never know what to expect in division games. And they were literally just a few plays away. A little boneheaded mistake at the end of the game by Russell Rennes taking a sack. And they ended up losing the game 34-27.
Yeah, this was... I think there's huge positives on both sides here. On the Huskies side, finally see defense that we've been waiting to see. We've seen little bits and pieces of it but they just haven't been able to put it together consistently. They did this week. Hudson went off, Guyton goes off, even Leonidas got in on the fun, and the Aviators defense had no answer for him, for anybody. But on the other side, I think the Aviators played exceptional on offense. Russell Reynes, I think we've been a little harsh on for good reason, this season and even some of last year, but he proved he is still a capable quarterback, and he went toe-to-toe with the defending champs offense. He just didn't have the rest of the team long to do that.
Yeah, I think you got an internet, something's going on, you're like cutting out. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but I can hear it, and it's probably picking up on the game. No, I mean on the stream. Did it sound like he was cutting out? Just want to make sure, because it was all good, and then all of a sudden it started getting like Discordy, and it says he is.
What
yes.
the heck?
Yeah.
Well, I'll see if I have some, but that's pretty much all I had to say. Hats off to both teams. I think both of them played really well on offense. Russell Reynes worked well, within the game. Just wanted to make sure that I got that out there in case it was all mixed up with my cutting out. So that's all I got.
Okay. Yeah. So as for the like you were saying, building off of the Aviators, like I agree, man. That offense was going, and Russell Reynes had his best game, I feel, this season. Unfortunately, came up short again. His team right now 1-4, but I honestly feel like that this is a team that's got some great players that's going to be able to make some plays, and they're just in a tough division, man. I mean, these guys are literally in the same division as the Cougars and the Huskies right now. I mean, those are two powerhouse teams. And I'm blanking on who the third one in their division is, but still, I mean, I think even that team's great. So, I mean, the Aviators right now are really, just in a tough spot. You said the Bulls? Yes, that's exactly what it is. The Bulls. Yeah, the Bulls. So, I mean, dang, that's just thinking about that is crazy. I just thought about that. I don't see how they could even – they might get swept by all three of those teams, and that's difficult. Yeah. That's half of your games in the season. You lose 6 games, you're gone. You're not making a postseason. So, I mean, I don't think it's definitely not. This definitely won't be a year for them. But yeah, I mean, I think that Russell Reynes did the best that he could with the opportunities that he had. I got to talk about the Huskies, of course, too. I mean, these guys were balling. Brady Hudson was great. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions this time. I think the offensive line continued to do a good job blocking for him. I think it was still a little bit of sacks there, but the offensive line continues to improve week in and week out for them, which I'm very excited with. Corey Leonidas got off in that game, had a long touchdown run, put on a move, shake and bake, broke some ankles, and was out of there for a long one. Over 130 rushing yards, you can see there. Keith Guyton, continue to get this guy the football. 6 receptions, 150 yards, a touchdown. This dude took a slant to the house without getting touched. The dude's amazing. Continue to do what you're doing, Chiz. On it, whatever you used in this game to get him the ball and to make those plays, continue to do it, man, because this is the Huskies that we're used to seeing here. The defense, of course, kind of got moved on, though, but still, great job.
Yeah, now go and do it against somebody other than the Aviators.
It always seems to be the Aviators, right?
Yeah, go and pick on somebody your own size. Like, what the heck?
Yeah, so hopefully he'll be able to do that this week, because he's definitely got a challenge, as you can see at the bottom of this one. But this is the Week 7 schedule that we got coming up. I'm going to just read these ones off. We have the Crusaders taking on the Steamers tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, followed by the Bisons taking on the Riverhogs at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. For the premier games, not a premier game. This is an extra game. I know we started early on in the season doing streams on Facebook, but I decided to cut that out. Just don't like the system that they have there for streaming. It's hard for me to keep up with the chat, and then I can't, it's like I got to scroll up in order to read what people were saying. So we're done streaming to Facebook from now on. We're actually going to move our Friday games back to YouTube. So a big Friday game is going to be the Gunners versus the Explorers. The Gunners have never played the Explorers in RFL history, so this will be the first time that those guys ever meet. So a great solo Friday game there at 7 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you go ahead and come through for that one. On Saturday, to start out the premier games, we have at 1 p.m. the Monarchs taking on the Diablos. I really like that matchup. At 4 p.m. Eastern, 2 pair of games that we have is the Marshals and the Lancers for the battle of the NFC South, and the Tigers versus the Desperados. And then at 6 p.m. Eastern, we have 2 pairs of games as well. We got the Black Knights and the Dreadnoughts going at it, and the Voyagers and the Bulldogs. And of course, we close out the game with a big one here with the in the AFC East, as the Celtic Tigers take on the Orlando Sentinels in a divisional game right there. Trying to just check and see if the Celtic Tigers can continue to remain unbeaten and as dominant as they looked. Moving on to the premiere of the primetime games. On Sunday, we have at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, the Cougars taking on the Aviators, followed by the Bulls taking on the Bisons at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. And that's a good rivalry right there. And then, of course, the last day, we got 2 really big games. Well, it would have been big games if it wasn't for the suspensions, but pretty much the Thunderbirds taking on the Snowhawks on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, and at 7:30 p.m. Eastern might be the biggest game this week. The Huskies and the Red Dragons. They used to be in the same division, not anymore, but that should be a great showdown between 2 teams coming into the season that we felt were going to be competing for the number 1 spot in the AFC. So with that all being said, and looking at the slate of these games, who do you think is going to win out of each of these games here, Bill?
All right, well, starting off on Thursday, we got Crusaders and the Steamers. For this one, I got the Steamers bouncing back. I think they got slapped in the face last week. I think they'll bounce back well, and I don't think it's going to be a blowout either. This was a tough one for me to choose because the Crusaders' offense has been humming. Wakefield and Bentley are on fire. I just think the Steamers are going to pull this one out. They're at home, and they have the better quarterback at this point. I mean, I shouldn't say that because Wakefield's been really good, but overall-wise, Wagner is obviously a higher overall, so I just think at some point that's going to take over, and the Steamers will win this one. As for the Bisons and Riverhogs, sorry, Ethan, I got to go River. I think last week they're going to come out and they're going to want to score some points, and I think they're going to be able to do it and probably score more than the Bisons, so we're going to go Riverhogs there. As for my game, this is another really, really good matchup. Of course, I'm going to pick my team. I'm at home. I think I have a solid defense. But you never know what might happen if Jabri starts going off, and it's hard to contain him. So, I mean, I'm assuming that I'm going to win, but you never know. Monarchs and the Diablos. I think this is the week. I think this is the week the Diablos win it. All right. I know the Monarchs sort of looked halfway decent. I was happy with their performance like a week or 2 ago, but I think the Diablos will pull one out. They'll get themselves into their second victory and hopefully, try to get some kind of momentum going. And then for the Marshals and the Lancers, man, that's a tough one. I'm gonna have to go Marshals though. I just think their defense is way too good. I think it's gonna help them in this game, obviously, and I think they're gonna pull out the win, even though they're trailing to Oklahoma City. Sorry, I'm assuming Noah's in the chat probably mad at me for not liking the Lancers or something, but after last week's win, you gotta like the Marshals, and right now they're hot. Tigers at the Desperados. I got to go Desperados here. I like what Coach Wizenard is doing with the Tigers, but man, that offense is scary with Tavion Hall and Chase Mason, how they're playing, so we're going to go Desperados. Black Knights and the Dreadnoughts. Yeah, sorry, a lot of games to rattle off. Black Knights and the Dreadnoughts. This one I'm going to have to go Dreadnoughts. They're on a roll. Like we said before, they should be undefeated essentially, but a little mix-up caused that to not be the case. I think they'll keep rolling against the Black Knights. I think the Bulldogs will beat the Voyagers. I just like what the Bulldogs are doing. I like what Coach Reed is doing, and I'm not exactly sure where the Voyagers are at yet. Coach Baker might still be trying to get some things together, and they just have a little bit more talent than the Voyagers at this point. As for one of the games of the week for me, the Celtic Tigers and the Sentinels, I got to go Celtic Tigers. I want to go with the Sentinels because I like what Armstrong does, but I just think that if any team's going to stay undefeated, it's going to be them. I just don't see anybody beating them at this point this season. Hopefully you prove me wrong, Armstrong. As for the Cougars and the Aviators, I have the Cougars bouncing back. I know the Aviators had a good game last week, but the Cougars, they lost a tough one against the Bulls, and I just do not see them losing back-to-back in the division like this. They'll bounce back, and they'll take that one. Bulls and Pioneers, going to take the Bulls. They're on a roll. They're undefeated. I just don't think the Pioneers have what it takes on offense to keep up with the Bulls. I'm going to take the Thunderbirds over the Snowhawks because, well, I don't know if I can trust the Snowhawks to really do anything right at this point until next week. So Thunderbirds it is. And for this last game, the Huskies and the Red Dragons, sorry, I am going to go with the Red Dragons. And the reason being is I think that we know the Red Dragons have a very, very good defense, and we've seen that the Huskies sometimes struggle when it comes to a really good defense. And I think that this is the week that Anthony Savoy could get his team into the position to win a really good game on offense and take out the Huskies at home.
Some good predictions there, and so I'll rattle off mine. I do agree with you with the Steamers. I do think that they will defeat the hot Crusaders right now, especially with the home field advantage. And of course, it was a tough loss they took by the Marshals, but I feel like they're going to be ready to go here in this game. I think Reed Wagner's going to have a much better game playing up against an easier defense, that's for sure. Even though they have kind of been impressing me this season, I don't feel that the Steamers are going to lose that one. Moving on to the next game, I have the Riverhogs over the Bisons. I think that their defense, like I said, continues to struggle. The Bisons, I don't feel, will be able to stop the Riverhogs, especially the run game. They are like the number one rushing team in the league right now. I got to look up the stats on that. Should have looked at it before I got into this podcast. But at the end of the day, I mean, this is a really good running team this year, and they're going up against one of the league's worst run defenses. So the Bisons, I don't feel they're going to be able to stop them at all, and they'll lose that one. Moving on to your game, I feel that the Explorers and your team's going to win that one. I just don't like what's going on there with the Gunners. It just seems like their offense is just struggling, and I can't really say too much about what it is, which we'll get into that topic later. But I don't feel that they're still ready yet, and they've definitely lost a lot of morale heading into that game. This is a big game to watch because both of these teams right now only got minimal wins. I don't think the Monarchs won a game at all, so or the Diablos. But at the end of the day, I think the Diablos are just a better team. They should be able to beat the Monarchs. I'm not going to make a prediction for the Marshals in the OKC game because I actually that game has been pre-recorded already. I already know the outcome and I don't want to try to be a fraud and talk about it. But I'm gonna tell you this right now: you got to watch that game, dude. I'm saying it right now. And I'm not going to tell the CU what happened. I'm not telling nobody nothing. Just go watch that game.
You're holding out on us. Okay,
yeah, I'm holding out because this game may be the game of the year. That's what I'm saying right now.
Oh, man.
So you better watch that game. I'm not sure how the other one's going to turn out, but that game is amazing. And I'm not going to say anything else on it. But the next game, the Tigers and the Desperados game, I've got the Desperados winning this one after a good win last week. Not really too much to say about that one. The Dreadnoughts and the Black Knights, I do feel that the Dreadnoughts are going to get the victory here. I think they'll get it done, especially since the offensive lapse that the Black Knights kind of had last week. As for the Voyagers and Bulldogs game, that's another game I know the outcome too, so I'm not going to speak on that one. As for the Celtic Tigers and the Sentinels, I got to go with the Celtic Tigers here in this one. Definitely a hot team. I agree. I don't think any team can beat, but of course you can get surprised in the RFL, so you never know. But I got the Celtic Tigers. I got the Cougars over the Aviators in that game. Think it'll be a good game, but I think the Cougars bounce back. I got the Bulls over the Pioneers. And to be honest, you look back at last season, I believe that the Pioneers beat the Bulls last season once and then tied with them. And for the one out of the two ties that we had last season. So the Bulls are looking for redemption here over the Pioneers, and I think that they're going to get it on the road there in Salt Lake City. And then as for the Thunderbirds Snowhawks game, definitely going to go with the Thunderbirds. I don't feel like the Snowhawks honestly stand a chance with their suspended players. And for the Huskies and Red Dragons game, I'm actually going to go with the Huskies here. And I understand that the Red Dragons got one of the most craziest defense, maybe the best defense this year in the RFL. But honestly, I do feel like their offense is going to be able to make more plays and probably put up more points than Anthony Savoy in his offense. So I'm going to go with the Huskies in a close one. And so those are my predictions right there. Let me see. Got to look at the rest. Okay, yeah, so those are the score. Okay, before I do move on here, which game are you most excited to watch right now this week?
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. Yeah, I think honestly, I think it's a tie for me. It's between. Well, now that you said that, I feel like I should say the Marshals and Lancers, but I'm going to assume you didn't say that, and I'm going to say the Celtic Tigers and Sentinels or the Huskies and Red Dragons, just based off of the matchups.
Yeah. And so even though I know how awesome the Marshals and the OKC game is, I'm going to just go elsewhere and say I agree with you on that one with those two games as well. So I'm
Another
go ahead.
game, though, a third game that could be a real sleeper is actually the first game, tomorrow night's first game on YouTube, which is the Crusaders at Steamers. Both have great offenses, so that might be a sleeper for another good game.
I think all the games this week is going to be some bangers. So I mean, last week was a great game. This should be a great game. This should be a great week, definitely. Moving on to the new top 10 power rankings in the RFL. Here they are. Of course, number 1 remaining still the Celtic Tigers, but the Bulls moving up to number 2. Dreadnoughts moving up after a big win, as technically they got up to that spot because they technically haven't lost a game yet. So they moved up to number 3. The Steamers are number 4. Your team, Explorers, stays at number 5. The Lancers and the Marshals move up 2 spots as the Lancers go at 6, Marshals go at 7, and of course that game, battling for the division and pretty much batting for those spots right there. Then we have at 8, the Barons, after impressive win over the Thunderbirds, dropping the Thunderbirds to 10, and in between them at 9, got the Desperados. What is your thoughts on this top 10 power rankings list right now, Bill?
I think it's pretty valid, actually, the way it stands. Somebody might find it crazy that I say this because he seems to think I don't respect his team, but I actually think the Barons should be above the Lancers and the Marshals. I wouldn't, of course, put them above my own team because that would just be weird, and I also, obviously won the last game we had, but I would put the Barons up a little bit more higher on this list just because of the type of win they had and the type of team that they beat last week. But aside from that, everything else looks pretty in line. So no complaints from me.
Yeah, honestly, I just flat out agree with this list. I think everything was right. Maybe to an extent, the Steamers from the loss would probably be either underneath your team or the Marshals. But of course, I could kind of see why it's where it's at because the Lancers, they didn't play the Steamers, and it's a weird situation. I don't feel that the Steamers should be pretty much 3 slots over the Marshals after the Marshals had a big win like that. But honestly, don't know how I would rearrange this. So I agree with this list. Moving on to the next topic we got here, and it's a big one, and it's talking about the Brooklyn Barons. Are the Brooklyn Barons a serious competitor this season? I mean, these guys 5-1 right now, only losses to your team. And last week, of course, as we already talked about and we all know, they came up with a huge win over the Thunderbirds. And if they're beating the Thunderbirds, what are their chances of possibly being able to make a run to a Relo Bowl this year, man?
I really, really believe that it's going to be tough in our division just because of the way all 3 of us are playing right now. But I think the Barons are a contender just as much as my team, the Thunderbirds, anybody else in the NFC. My only question is, does that defense hold up down the stretch? The offense has been amazing. There's no doubt about it. And the defense has shown flashes at times as well. But whether it's, last week or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago and the defense showed, well, hey, we can do this, we can do that, it's really going to start mattering when you get down later in the season and closer to the playoffs. They have a solid front 7, I believe, and they have some young guys in the secondary who are coming along nicely. I just don't know if they're going to, what's the word I'm looking for, develop fast enough for this team to make this defensive unit as good as it can be in the future. But I do believe that they are a serious competitor, just as I believe anybody else in the NFC is right now. They are playing great football. The offense is amazing. They're led by an amazing quarterback. And I know Roland Woods does everything he can every week for his team to win. So, I mean, it's hard because there's a lot of teams in the NFC, but they're up there at the top just like anybody else is right now. I mean, it's almost a 3-way tie for first place in the NFC, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, man. I mean, the Bison, I'm confusing these teams up. I've seen somebody correcting me on that already in the chat. But the Barons are definitely a team that is on the rise right now. Very surprised I was this past week with that win over the Thunderbirds, and the fact that they only have that one loss to you guys who lost to the Thunderbirds. It just shows me, like you said, you don't honestly this year. I honestly don't know who may win the NFC. Was it this South that you guys are in, or am I wrong here?
Come on now, man. Where's Brooklyn? Is it South or North? Come on.
Okay, it's East.
No, we're in the North, man.
Hey, man, I tend to mess up sometimes, man.
This guy knows every depth chart player from a team in season 1. He doesn't know what divisions we're in.
Yeah, I got confused on that one, man. I didn't say anything. I'm gonna edit this out after this is done. But anyway, but the Barons, they're just a solid team. It's literally a 3-way Pete right now for that division. And it just seems like everybody's beating everybody. You don't know how it's going to turn out. It pretty much comes down to the non-divisional games, on who's going to win this one. And the Barons, I do feel, are definitely a competitor this year in the RFL. And I got to give a shout out to Roland Woods, because he's been preaching this since he got here. So many people was talking about him even not being able to go 8-8 this season. Here he is, 3 games away from going 8-8, and he hasn't even played all of his NFL sim games yet. So, I mean, he's definitely going to be this is definitely going to be the first year that the Barons go over 500. So, big shout out to him, man. Moving on to the next topic, and it is, of course, is about the Portland Snowhawks. Snowhawks finally get off of punishment after this week. So, I mean, that's good, but they still have the Thunderbirds to play this week. And, man, they're 0-3 right now in RFL games. Most likely going to go 0-4. Will the Snowhawks be able to make the playoffs, you think, this year? Or do you think with this loss to the Thunderbirds most likely coming up that it's over for them?
That's a tough question, because we know that the Snowhawks offense is amazing when they have all of their guys there. And their defense sort of feeds off that, and they have a great team when they're all there. But right now, they are just down. And you hope that this, sort of lull that they're in doesn't carry into the rest of the team once the starters return. But, yeah, if they win this game, or if they lose this game this week against the Thunderbirds, which I'm pretty sure all agree that they are going to, you have to basically win out. At that point, to be a contender, to get in the playoffs, you're going to have to win out. It's going to also come down to the rest of their division. How far behind are they in their division? How far will they be behind in a few weeks? Will they bounce back right away? Next week is key. Week 8 is the key to if they have a chance at the playoffs, and they're going to have to come out and they're going to have to win the last 8-9 games that they have with the starters, and that's the only way that they get to the playoffs, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this has just been a tough stretch. 0-4, and then, of course, the players come back in. Of course, they have no momentum. They've been suspended. This team's morale right now is down, and they take one more loss most likely after this, and it's over for them, I feel. I mean, it's just, I don't feel that they have too much of a chance. Like, they have to, like you said, win out. They have to win out, and they definitely will have the players to be able to do that when they return. But still, and even though they have that talent, never know in the RFL, and this is definitely going to affect the Snowhawks. And I know Mitch, he's going to have to try whatever he can to get this team in the full gear. But I do not feel that the Snowhawks will make the postseason, and that's a lot to say because this is a team that has never missed the RFL playoffs in franchise history, and due to a terrible act, in getting suspended, this may be the year that they don't make it. So upsetting to say, but hey, it's the facts they got to face, and that's the harsh reality of being suspended for, having to take responsibility for your actions. Hopefully the Snowhawks bounce back from this in the future. Moving on to the last topic of the podcast, we talk about the Gunners. This is the last topic because right now, the biggest question for me, and I'm pretty sure right now for a good amount of RFL fans, especially Houston fans, what's going on with the Gunners this season? They are 0-3 in RFL games. They play you guys this week, but man, why is this team not the same team that we've been accustomed to seeing for the past 2 seasons? This has been a team that has made the NFC Championship game for the last 2 seasons, back to back. Unfortunately, losing to the Thunderbirds in both of those games. But it seems like ever since this season started, it's taken a complete backseat. Why is that, in your opinion?
I don't have an answer, man. I really don't. I mean, going from last year to this year, I really don't see a whole lot of change in the team. You know, there wasn't a bunch of people leaving and new faces or a new coach. You just have to wonder, was there a scheme change? Did something happen to the system they were running? I don't know what to put it under. I don't know what to blame it on. It just seems that, you know, some weeks it looks like Jabri is trying to push this team to have success, and they're just not following. Or other weeks it looks like Jabri doesn't really understand what's going on either, which is crazy to think because we all know how good Jabri Jackson has been and still is. And they are still the team that we saw last year. They are still the team we saw 2 seasons ago. They are still the Gunners. I don't know what it's going to take for them to turn it around, but at some point you got to change something, you know. So I hope that I'm not the team they change it around against, because that would suck. But I do believe there's still a very talented team, and they just I don't know. I really am not sure, because like I said before, man, there's hasn't really been a whole lot of change. The only major change on their team, I think, has been Lester Gadsden moving on. If I think about it, am I wrong there? I don't think so. No, so I mean, there hasn't been a monumental shift in players here. I just think it's something with the system. Something is not right with the playbooks, with the schemes, you know, whatever it is, with the training. Something's not right there. And if Coach James can figure out what that is and find the right solution for him, then this team will go back to what they were and what we've known them to be the last 2 years. But the question now remains is, will it be in time to get them back to there again, you know, for the postseason?
Yeah, and on my breakdown right now, the Gunners, I mean, it's sad to see this because this has been a team that has been a great team for the past 2 seasons. One of the 2 teams in RFL history to ever post a 15-1 record. Back when, of course, they made their first NFC Championship run in Season 3, where they lost to the Thunderbirds and literally by a yard. And, I mean, that Jabri Jackson, I mean, Action Jackson, might as well call it. He was Action Jackson before Lamar Jackson became Action Jackson, man. I mean, before he even stepped foot in the RFL, in the NFL, this was the Action Jackson. And right now, I mean, even though Action Jackson has been the solution for them, it's not enough this year. It's just not enough in the RFL. And you can see him every week trying to do his best. Sometimes he may have an off game, but Jabri Jackson just can't carry this team no more. He's an older guy now. He was in his youth during those times. He's 29 years old, definitely going to touch the big 30 after this year. And so that's when you start to see regression. And right now, I still feel like he's at the end of his prime. And, you know, if they can't figure out what to do this year, and it's going to be a big problem for them in the future. They already got an old quarterback in Jimmy Largent who's behind him. He's 34. Most likely he's going to retire. And then the only quarterback in the future, I mean, for them, I'm pretty sure they're not going to move away from Jabri Jackson despite the regression in the first place. I'm pretty sure he's still going to be a good quality quarterback to have. But, you know, they need to add pieces around him. And, of course, they can't do that pretty much right now this year. But the issue becomes where you got to put it on the coach. Is Coach James got to figure out a way to get his players in the right positions. I feel like he needs to go more in depth, look at auto subs, and figure out where to place people in the formation, figure out how to get certain people the football. Colt Cruz, honestly, since coming over, you know, in the RFL last season, has not been a good productive receiver for the Gunners. He's been okay at times. He was great in the postseason last year, but he was terrible throughout the season, and he's still not getting the football, and I can't really blame him too much for that because they're still not finding ways to target him the football. They kind of hurt themselves by letting Lester Gadsden walk and pretty much letting him go, and their running game's just not the same. Lester Gadsden's not there now. They're relying on Ricky Flores, who honestly I don't feel is a premier starting back. He's a backup style of back who still needs to develop and could possibly be that guy in the future. But right now, he's not that type of back. They don't have any starters there. Him and Ray Jr., they're doing okay, but they're not getting it done on the ground. And so that leaves Jabri Jackson completely isolated to have to figure out what to do with this offense, and that's why they can't move the football. Their defense has always not been great as well. It's a lot of bad things right now going bad for the Gunners. The reason why they even had success the last 2 seasons was because of Jabri Jackson, and I honestly feel right now he has reached his point of doing the best that he can for the team, and it's just not working out. So, I mean, that's what I feel right now is working against the Gunners this season.
Well, let me ask you this then. So, we know the one thing that left this year, and we know that this year they've been not the same. Do you think that, and I know this might be a stretch, but do you think that Lester Gadsden was that much of a key component to this team that his departure just sort of rattled this whole offense?
I do agree with that too. With the loss of him and the fact that, Jabri Jackson, for one, amazingly was doing it all then. Now without that help, it's like he's really just getting taxed now. And it's hard for them to really move the ball offensively. But Coach James has got to figure out some way to make the best out of the talent that he has. And honestly, I feel like they go in with a pretty basic game plan, but they need to be more than basic coming into games. They need to come in there with a legit strategy on how they're going to attack the team that they're playing and get their players in the right position to make the plays. They have some pretty decent players, of course, not the best talented offense in the league if you exclude Jabri Jackson, but they've got to do something because it's not looking too good for them. But with that being said, we have cleared all our bases with all the topics we wanted to talk about this evening with the RFL podcast, and we now leave it open to the RFL viewers of the RFL community. Of course, appreciate you guys coming through. If you guys have any questions right now that you would like to ask us, we are going to answer them live as always. And of course, you guys can get started right now. We'll pick out all the questions that we see and try to answer them on the spot. And I also got two things of big news that I have for you guys before we do that. One, I almost forgot about it.
Two big newses.
Yeah, 2 big newses, man. 2 big newses. I'm making up words here. But the first big news is that the abilities and X factors, we found a way to make them more, to be able to adjust them individually. So now I have already went through most of all the teams and given the people the abilities that match their playing style. So I believe you're going to be seeing the best, the most realistic performance out of players now with the right abilities that match their playing style. Because there was a few out of line, and I've made sure I've done that. I also took away useless X factor and not X factor, but useless abilities that literally won't work in CPU versus CPU gameplay. So I've replaced those with good ones. So I think you're going to be seeing a lot of great play out of star players now in the league. Even though we've already been seeing that, I think you're going to see more out of the players who should shine more. For example, Jabri Jackson. I think another thing is, those abilities he had honestly didn't help him out either, even though he was still playing good. But I think he's going to be a more dynamic player. Sorry, Bill.
You just had to do that right before my game, huh? You're just going to wait a week?
And I got some other ones, for example, LC3. I was supposed to even change his throwing style because I was supposed to do that in like the week 1 before the preseason started, and I never done it. And coach, of course, reached out to me about it and wanted to make sure his guy was right. So I made that change, made sure his abilities also was kind of shifted towards what he does and not those useless ones. But I've done that. And of course, the final big news is for guys who have been asking me for years, how to relocate a team and multiple teams in the RFL. I have made a video, and it's right now in production. I'm just creating the thumbnail and everything for it and doing a little bit more editing. I have made a video where I will send you the link, and of course I will post it up on our channel, and you guys will not have to ask me that question no more because I've broken it down in depth for you guys to be able to know how to do it. Of course, I'm letting you know also this is tedious, and it should be about a 15-minute long video, but it breaks down everything. And if anybody asks me that question, all you're going to be getting from now on is a link. So, yeah, that's the big news right there. I know you guys have been asking for that since like season 1 of the RFL.
Well, first, that's awesome. That's good to know. And the second thing, I feel like you are trying to bring me and Mark down here. Okay, first you mess up, You don't change his throwing style for LC3, and now you just got to unload, all the abilities for Jabri the 2 days before I play him. What's going on here, Smitty? Is something you got to tell us?
I'm telling y'all that I messed up early. I'm making those changes now. I'm being a bigger man now.
Down. All right.
I'm stepping up now.
You
making
got
the
Roland
plays
in your
that need to
pocket,
be
huh?
made.
Roland, what are you doing over here, huh? Trying to taint me and Mark's season here. Great work, Smitty. He's probably talking about the video, but I'm gonna pretend that it was about messing with me and Mark.
All right, so now we're free to answer questions. So if anybody got any questions, let me know what's going on.
Miller Kingdom, do you think the London Bulldogs and or the Black Knights will make the playoffs? And then he has 2 questions. And then, do you think the Huskies' main problem is the offensive line? Well, first off, yeah, that's the Huskies' main problem.
Yeah.
That's been the problem this whole season. Their defense can play a little bit better, but the offensive line is the main problem.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Bulldogs and the Black Knights?
Well, honestly, it's a stretch for, I say, the Bulldogs because, that's a team that, that has great talent, but I feel like they're still have themselves a pretty tough schedule, and they got to kind of work things out there to get the best out of the players that they have. Another thing is the Black Knights. The Black Knights, I think they have a chance. I do think they have a chance, but it's going to be tough because they are in the same division as the Celtic Tigers. They got the Sentinels in there, and the Bulldogs are there too. So honestly, man, they have a chance. I think it's a 3-way tie for second place right now in the AFC East, with them, the Bulldogs, and the Sentinels having a 4-2 record. And I'm pretty sure I'm correct on that. But yeah. So I mean, I think they have more of a chance than the Bulldogs do.
And then the Soviet Fox just says Bulls upset. I don't know about that. I'm assuming he's talking about the Pioneers and Bulls game this week.
Yeah, he says, can the Nears upset the Bulls? They can. I mean, they can. They've done it last year, but I think, this is a different Madden where talent definitely shows out different. And, I mean, even though the Pioneers, have a much better defense than in years past, that offense isn't bad either, but I don't think they'll be able to really put up a fight against the Bulls this time. And I know that Jeff and the Bulls are looking for vengeance after the loss and the tie from last year.
Yeah, you know what? I'll say it. Fine. I'll say it. The Pioneers are going to upset the Bulls this week.
Oh, wow.
That's my bold prediction for the week. Grant, you better not let me down.
I can't even say that, man. I can't even say that. I honestly feel like the Nears might get dogged, man. I'm keeping it 100. But that's gonna be tough. I don't see how they can get it done.
And then Joshua Hexel. No, there's no way to get our roster. Our roster is, we build it within our franchise files when the new game comes out. We don't have a file that we download or I should say upload to a franchise file. It's made by the hard work of a select few individuals every year, and yeah, there's really no way to get it. And to be honest, I'm not even sure if we would release that if it was available. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'd say the only thing I will release though is draft classes, and that's after the draft has happened. So if you guys would like to use an RFL draft class to see, I guess put those in your NFL franchise and see how they would do there, then you guys can use that. But you will not. I don't think we'll ever hand out the RFL rosters out there because, like Bill said, we literally build each individual player within the file, and then also we want that something to be just unique to us. So, yeah. Yeah,
and if we can't get you the draft class, then talk to Mitch. Bada bing. Just kidding.
You ain't lying, man. Gotta come at you, man. Yeah, you gotta come at Mitch, man, because still baffled on that. I mean, and that was months ago, but Jesus, that shocked the whole community.
Yeah. Now what do we got? Mark thinks that Ingram. Mark says that Isaiah Ingram thinks the Huskies O-line is just fine. I bet he does.
Yeah, he's gonna run right through them.
What do you think of the Sentinels so far? There's a good one.
I think they're doing okay. They to me, honestly, the way I feel they're underperforming though. I'm not going to say it's necessarily because of Coach Armstrong. I just feel like they're losing games that honestly they should have won. I can't go off the top of my head and remember which games those was, but I honestly do feel like there was, especially one of those games, one that I can't remember, they should have won at least one of those games against the Black Knights, but the Black Knights just completely walked them on both of those games. So I was really shocked by that, and honestly, I feel like he should have split with one of those, and for that reason, they kind of are underperforming, and it's going to be hard for them to try to make a push for the playoffs, which they've been able to make for a good amount of years now. But, this week they play the Celtic Tigers. The schedule starts getting rough for them. So I kind of feeling like they've been underperforming this year.
Yeah, this might actually be probably one of the most important week of the season for them, not just because of the type of matchup, but also the implications. Right now they're sitting at third. They're tied for third with the other two teams aside from the Celtic Tigers in the AFC East at 4-2. And this week, if they lose to the Tigers, that's going to hurt their division standing. And I mean, what happens after this? It's if they lose another divisional game, they're already 2 games behind you'd be 3 games behind the Celtic Tigers at that point. And that's a tough road to come up from, and no matter who you are.
Yeah, I'm laughing at Coach Chiz right now. He said, "Word." I guess he was talking about Isaiah Ingram when I said running through his offensive line. Well, for one, you don't have to see him at all this year. I mean, you already know how that turned out in the relocation bowl. But hey, you guys did end up winning that, so I guess you got bragging rights with that. But Isaiah Ingram, you already know he's coming through any offensive line, man. But yeah, we already know what the one situation with the Huskies is, the offensive line, but they'll get better. Honestly, they've been performing a lot better the past 3 weeks, though. So I got to give that up, give a shout out to that offensive line and your team right now, Coach Chiz. So let's see if you can get it done against the Red Dragons defense, though. That's going to be the real challenge. See if your offensive line is ready for that.
Oh, Mitchie's saying that you're changing your opinion on the Bulldogs. Are you? You basically said they're on their way to the bowl. I said they were, but things change. Things change. I admit I'm wrong. People was definitely flaming me for that. So your predictions of me being wrong on that is correct. But you never know. Also, I mean, Coach Reed is there, and making things happen a little bit there. So you never know. They could have a chance. It's still a tough division. That division is wide open. But I mean, there's so many other teams in the AFC too. Like that's even tough for any team other than the Celtic Tigers. Like the postseason is just unsure at this point. Yeah,
they're in the same division as the Celtic Tigers, though. So
I know that's what I'm saying. Like within that division, if you're not the Celtic Tigers, like your playoff chances are they're up in the air at this point because there's so many teams in the AFC.
Honestly, my logic behind why I felt that the Bulldogs were going to do good this year is for 2 reasons. I honestly felt like they were going to be pretty much neck and neck with a chance to beat out the Sentinels, which, I mean, they still do have the same record right now at 4-2. And I honestly felt that the London Black Knights were not going to be as good as they are this year. So that kind of threw me off. What kind of threw it off was the fact that the Black Knights still ended up being the Black Knights that, we were accustomed to seeing back in season 3. So that's a scary Black Knight team. So that's kind of why I thought that the Bulldogs were going to have a good chance to make the playoffs, because I honestly felt that if the Black Knights weren't performing, they should have a pretty much a good fair fight with the Sentinels to win the second place in that division. But because right now, I mean, I am kind of right about that. Sentinels kind of underperforming, and they're there neck and neck with them. But Black Knights, they just threw in the wrench in that whole scenario.
Looks like we have Sultan LSCG. Isn't that Nishan?
Yeah, that's right? Nishan, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Will the news of the NFL/2K sports deal cause EA sorts to improve upon Madden? I mean, yeah, I would say yeah. I think that anytime when you are the only competitor with a license in a market and somebody else is now in that territory, whether or not it's on the same wavelength as you or not, that means that you have to step your game up. Because let's be honest, if if EA was doing everything that the NFL expected them to and wanted them to as far as how well the game is going, they would have never even approached 2K about it. They would have never done this. It would have been all EA the whole time. But obviously they felt that need to bring in another competitor. So, yeah, EA is going to have to step their game up.
Honestly, I feel like this is a great thing because I do feel like EA is definitely going to have to improve their game because I've been seeing a lot of news. By 2021, their contract with the NFL is going to be up. And right now, 2K has been in the works, making this non-simulation game. So they're trying to come out with a banger. And if they do that by the time that their contract expires and that game looks good and everyone gravitates to that, EA's got to know at that point they have a chance to possibly lose that contract, a future contract with just being that only simulation game for the NFL, and 2K can slide in and make it happen themselves, possibly taking away or making it open to both of them, which I kind of don't think it will be, but 2K honestly has a chance to jump in and make things real bad for EA. So they have to really perform, I think, this upcoming Madden, man.
Yeah, and this is a perfect storm for the NFL because the NFL in this one deal here is saying, all right, 2K, here's your shot. Show us what you can do. Now that it's been 10, 15 years that you've had a video game with us. And on the other side, it's like, all right, EA, what are you going to say about this? How are you going to react? There's nothing else to do. EA just can't throw it off to the side like, yeah, whatever, it's not a simulation game. Because let's be honest, EA hasn't been the greatest simulation game either. They have to step their game up. And the NFL, they got 2K waiting in the wings, and they're going to be ready to pounce on it if there's any uncertainty about EA getting the simulation part of the deal again come 2021.
Yeah. Agree with all that, man. Great scenario for us gamers, though. I have to tell you.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is what we've been waiting for this since like 2000. Well, I've been waiting for this since like 2006 when it was announced that ESPN 2K5 was gonna be the last 2K football game. I was heartbroken. So I've been waiting for this for a long time.
Yeah, and I ain't gonna lie. I've been a Madden fan. I honestly didn't play any 2K football games when they were out, except for I think All Pro 2K8. It was a good game, but of course it had all the old guys and legends, so it didn't interest me at all. So that's why I didn't get too much into that. But 2K8, even that game was a really good game. I really liked the stuff that they had in that game. You could see other leagues, man. And I'm not even one of those type guys that try not to mention other leagues and other things like that. But like even you look at the SFL, like those guys, they're still thriving off of that game because of how good of a game it was. And so that's the type of production that 2K potentially has. And so, like I said, good scenario, man.
I'm not sure what the Soviet Fox is saying about here, Bill. He's on recording. I'm not sure, but I'm assuming by the time I get to the bottom of this list, I'll have an answer. How much scarier are the Barons going to be when JJ returns? That's a fair question.
Yeah, scary. It's going to be even more scary. They're going
to be great. Hopefully he stays healthy when he comes back. It's not a great start to his Barons career. Was it 11 weeks when he first got hurt? I think.
Yeah.
He's going to be a huge weapon for them. He's going to take pressure off of not only Kenny Steele but also Amari Manuel. So yeah, he's not going to do anything except make them a better team.
Yeah. Do you think the Cougars will make the playoffs? I think they got a chance.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I think that they, or the 100% certainty that they will, but they definitely have themselves a chance because their schedule for the rest of this season is pretty tough. But there are games that I feel that they should be able to win. And I think when we were in the CU one time, counting them up, they should at least get a minimum of like 9 wins. And the rest they have to earn to try to make the playoffs, which I think that they got a chance to. So.
Yeah, I think unless the Bulls fall on their face in the next week or two, they're probably going to win the division. That's just my safe bet right now. So it really comes down to how the Huskies play. If the Huskies continue to play like they did last week and finally put together, what we expect the Huskies to be, it's going to be tough for the Cougars because they play them twice, I believe, still yet. But if the Huskies continue down the inconsistent path, then the Cougars can capitalize. I think they have a chance to squeak in on the wild card spot because, I mean, like I said, the Bulls could lose a few, and the Cougars could just end up winning out. We don't know yet, but looking at it right now, it looks like it's really dependent on how the Huskies decide to play the rest of the season. I think they have a fair shot as long as they gets into some consistency and find their rhythm. I think they have a solid chance at making the playoffs.
Yeah. And moving on to this next question, it says, Miller Kingdom, besides Wakefield throwing the ball to Bentley, who else do you have? Should Bentley get injured in the Crusaders Steamers game? Well, to be honest, man, they still do have great receivers. Of course, it will be a huge, tremendous loss to the offense if Bentley is out, but they do actually have, two good receivers as well that actually make great plays and have been making great plays with Bentley this season. And that is, of course, Alexander Colt, which I see Mitch already said in the chat. And then following him, a guy who was an underdog and has been an underdog, I think, since the franchise even began and has been on the roster is Lindsey Hardison. So those are two really good guys.
All right. Oh, and okay, Soviet Fox, I get it now. It's a little hard sometimes to figure out where the comments come in because when we say things and when you hear them is a whole different time.
All right, but I think we've already been over about a good hour and a half on this podcast, so I think that will be all we'll take for questions. So with that being said, man, as always, appreciate you guys showing support and jumping out here to this RFL podcast. If you haven't already, make sure you smash the like button, share this to your friends or people who you feel may be interested, get them involved. We're just looking to build true fans of this league, man. Not only guys who just sit there and watch it randomly, but guys who are literally, watching this as if it's a real football league, man. Technically it is. It's just virtual. So, we bring every aspect to you like they would even in the NFL, So, hopefully, we get more guys along those lines that are really going to, really enjoy this league for everything that it brings. And I'm pretty sure for the most part, everyone we got here, they do that. And so salute to all you guys. And I guess that'll be it for me and Bill. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.